Sup, YouTube? I was having issue. It looked like it was delaying the starting of recording. Anyways, let's try to get this done. I honestly do not know when Scott DeWaz is going to upload a new video. I mean, I know it's always at 5 p.m. whenever he uploads. Wasn't expecting him to do it today, so let's get this going. So I actually am going to point out something. I did, in fact, upload some videos of Sonic Colors Ultimate. Now, at the beginning of the month, when the game first came out, I uploaded the my entire play of Tropical Resort Zone and the entire playthrough of Starlight Carnival Zone, because for some reason the footage when I was trying to edit it, the sound was completely out of sync, even though the video, when I watched it and when I uploaded it to YouTube, the sound wasn't out of sync. So when I put it on Premiere to edit it, for some reason it was out of sync. So I had to re-download the videos in order to edit them from there, and it worked fine, and there they are. So earlier today I uploaded Sonic Colors Ultimate Tropical Resort Act 1 through 6, and then the boss. Later I'm going to upload Starlight Carnival from Act 1 through 6 and the boss, as well as the race against Metal Sonic, which should be in here somewhere. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so anyways, I'm going to do a react video to best-selling consoles of all time by Scott DeWaz. And anyway, I'm just going to name off some consoles. I do know for a fact the PlayStation 2, the Sony PS2, is the highest-selling video game system of all time, with over, I think it's over 155 to like over 157 million units sold. The second highest selling system of console of all time is the Nintendo DS handheld system, with also over 155 million units sold, a little bit not too far behind the PS2 itself. The third highest selling console of all time, I believe, is the handheld Nintendo system, the Game Boy, with about over 118 million units sold. The fourth highest selling system of all time, I believe, is the PlayStation 1. I don't remember the exact numbers. I think it's about 110 million. The fifth highest selling console of all time used to be the Wii. It had like 105 million, but I believe the PS4 has surpassed it. The PlayStation 4 surpassed it by a little bit. And sixth would be the Wii. After that, it's a lot more iffy where they rank. Seventh, I think, might be the Game Boy Advance, maybe. Eighth might be the PlayStation 3. Ninth, the Xbox 360. Yes, believe it or not, the PS3 has outsold the 360. At first, the 360 was ahead of the PS3 for a long time, but later on that generation, the PS3 made a comeback and overtook them to take second, dropping the 360 to third, as the Wii was comfortably ahead in first for that console generation. The NES is up there somewhere, but anyways, let's watch the video, see what I got right, see what I got wrong. I haven't checked Wikipedia recently for this.
To-do list for the week, I got robbed, I took a bath. Now go on Wikipedia. You know, it's pretty hard to go, hey y'all, Scott here, here's a Wii U, when you just got robbed of everything that you hold dear. So, why not? Let's take a look at the game consoles that were held the most dear to the most people based on their sales. Of course, you may go, Scott, you were just robbed of everything. How do you have consoles to talk about? See, that's where you're wrong. I plan ahead of time. I have theft-proof items. I just spit on them a lot. That usually does the trick. My game console's still better than yours. Just look at my resume. See, there's a major difference between a video game player and a video game talker. Guess which one I am. What was I just doing? It's fine. I can go without talking about video games. I can just play them and everybody's happy. Wario. See, our type has to care about how well a video game company is doing. It's like rooting for your favorite sports team if you didn't even watch them play. I didn't buy Bravely Default 2. Gosh, I sure hope it does well. It just makes you feel good seeing the company that makes your favorite game system doing well. Like, man. there's gotta be some overworked employees in there. It's also just interesting to analyze those sales numbers. Why are they going up? Why aren't they going up? Why don't I play video games instead of talking about how much they sold and why you should care? How about this? Let's take a look at the 14 best-selling consoles of all time. If I don't convert you to a video game talker by the end, I'll officially play a video game. There's a lot writing on this. Of course, let's remove consoles that are still being actively sold, so anything post 2017, because those numbers will forever be changing. I always looked at that best-selling video game consoles of all time page on Wikipedia back when I was a kid.
I looked it up a lot too. Not as a kid, but as an adult, since I was born in 88, not 97.
Was the most popular, and think about why that might be. Why did this console sell so well, or not as much as it could have? If we actually figure it out, who knows? Maybe we can more easily predict what will happen in the video game industry. The SNES being at number 14, see what I can amount to?
Yeah, Super Nintendo did great. Hey, like I said in a previous video, let go of your bias. The Super Nintendo beat the Sega Genesis. But, just hear me out, the Sega Genesis put up a respectable fight. It was a good battle. It was the closest console war ever. The Super Nintendo got 49 million units sold. The Sega Genesis about 28 million units sold. But that's close. That's actually the closest battle for first there ever has been. The Wii was well ahead of its competition. Sure, the Xbox 360 and the PS3 had a tight battle for second place, but who cares about who gets second, right? It's about the battle for first, and the best battle for first place was the Super Nintendo versus the Sega Genesis. Initially, the Sega Genesis was ahead, but of course the Sega Genesis came out a couple years before the Super Nintendo did, so that kind of helps there. Releasing Sonic helped the Sega Genesis, but the Super Nintendo has Super Mario World, Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, Super Metroid, which is still one of my favorite games of all time, and so many other games, while Sega just has just Sonic. Yeah, there are other great games. There's that beat-em-up game, I forget what, Streets of Rage. That game's really fun. I didn't really get into beat-em-ups back in the day, I guess, but I've played them more recently and I understand the appeal. There's of course Rystar, which I kind of wish they'd make more of those. There's only one Rystar game, but he's actually still kind of a popular Sega character. I mean, he's always the guy who's holding up the checkered flash in the Sonic and All-Stars racing games, not in the new Team Sonic Racing, of course, but his game was awesome. Anyways, let's continue on with the video. Super Nintendo is 14th. Which would probably put the Sega Genesis, I think, in 15th. No, it put him in 16th because the N64 would be 15th with 32 million units sold.
The Super Nintendo Entertainment System sold just over 49 million units.
Yeah.
What a little bitch. Yeah, only 49 million units, which is quite good.
And there's obviously Kirby's Dream Land 3 and Kirby Superstar. Kirby Superstar is still considered by many to be the greatest Kirby game of all time. I think when Kirby Triple Deluxe came out for the 3DS, that beat Kirby Superstar. But Kirby Superstar was incredible, and so was Kirby Dream Land 3.
I mean, it is one of the best. But when talking about the most successful game systems of all time, numbers in this region aren't normally brought up. It's crazy to me that some of the most iconic systems out there, the NES, Sega Genesis, Nintendo 64, Atari 2600, sold as few units as they did.
Oh, yeah, actually, yeah, the Atari 2600 has like 30 million units sold, so yeah, that's higher than the Sega Genesis, but not by much. 39
million is still a lot, but the SNES didn't do as well as it could have. It's hard to believe, but ever since the NES, Nintendo systems were going down in unit sales.
Yeah,
the SNES sold 13 million less than its predecessor, and with the sheer quality of games that were released on it,
there were so many good games.
Definition of treason. However, the sales decrease makes sense for a couple of reasons. To many consumers, the Nintendo Entertainment System was merely the hot toy for a few years. The idea of upgrading your video game console to the next big thing, it didn't make much sense to them. Why would I get that new Nintendo? This one works just fine. And it smells. They get it as a toy or something along the lines of a VHS player. The only reason why you'd upgrade either of those is if your last one broke. But I think what made an even bigger difference was the Sega Genesis. You hear a lot of people that went from the original NES to the Sega Genesis.
Yeah, a lot of people did.
The NES didn't face as much competition. Anybody that got in its way, it has a body count. I mean, any competitors just weren't exciting. Nobody looked at an Atari 7800 going, damn. The Sega
Yeah,
Genesis was
Sega Master
Nintendo's
System
first
was not.
piece of major competition. Without it, obviously, I think the Super Nintendo would have sold significantly more. But as it stands, I'd say it sold
maybe
as
it would've
well
sold
as it
less.
did due to amazing games and loads of them at that.
Yeah.
Though it didn't sell as
Chrono
much
Trigger's
as it could have
incredible.
due to heavy competition from Sega and the climate of upgrading video game consoles at the time.
Xbox
And
One.
that's just sad. The Xbox One, estimated to have sold roughly 51 million
That
units,
means
not
the
bad.
Switch is
Bad.
going to be
The
on here.
PlayStation 4 absolutely demolished the One by selling over twice
Yeah.
as many consoles. Now, to be fair, the Xbox One is a week younger than the PS4.
That doesn't make that much a difference. It's because Microsoft fucked up when they revealed the console. They fucked up horrendously when they revealed the console. Oh my gosh, trying to get people to actually pay for online service just to even run the console, basically, was what it was pointing out. Plus, they kept advertising how great it is for TV. It's like, nobody's getting a console for that, you dumbasses. What about the games? When Sony introduced the PS4 after that, they kicked their ass, and it showed.
It's been on the market for less time, let's give it that. But the Xbox
Nah.
One struggled to put much of a dent into the PlayStation 4's tyranny. And if you were there during both consoles' reveals,
Oh,
you know
God.
why. The PS4
Yeah.
had a nearly flawless track record with fans from reveal to release. Sure, getting rid of backwards compatibility was lame, but hey, here are games and a system. Holy shit.
Plus, when the Xbox One was released, it actually was $500. The PS4 was $400. But the PS4 was a more powerful system with better graphics than the Xbox One. Why did the Xbox One, its competitor, which was inferior in terms of its specs, more expensive? Oh, they forced users to have Kinect included. That was why. So it sold horribly off the bat because the PS4 was more powerful and $100 cheaper. Then when Microsoft released the Xbox One without forcing people to have the Kinect included and made it cost the same as the PS4, it finally started to sell pretty well. But yes, the PS4 dominated. And the Xbox One got its ass kicked so much that when the Switch came out 4 years later, it only took maybe about 2 years, maybe less, for the Switch to surpass it in sales. Oh, sorry, spoilers.
The Xbox One's reveal was watered down by talks about Kinect, TV, and streaming functionality.
Oh, God,
watching
yeah.
live sports titles, Call of Duty. It was everything people despise about the Xbox 360 at this point, wrapped up in a neat little piece of shit. As time went
Yeah.
on, it was revealed the console would require an internet connection to work. It would block used games from being played, and the system would retail for $499.
Yeah.
And at E3 2013, Sony revealed that the PS4 wouldn't be doing any of this and cost $100 less.
Yeah.
Spec sheets showcased how the PS4 was actually more powerful than the
Yeah, I
Xbox
just
One, and the
explained that,
games
yeah.
Sony revealed for the console, I mean, they weren't amazing, but they were games. That initial reveal ruined Microsoft's chances to sell more Xbox Ones. Ever since,
Yeah.
you just ask, why would I buy that instead of a PS4? And honest to God, I don't know any live being who answered that. The exclusive games just weren't there.
Yeah.
The PS4 took a bit to get some genuine must-have exclusives, but when they started hitting, it was already all over for Xbox. Their
Yeah.
exclusives were either more Halo, Gears of War, and Forza, or some of the most forgettable exclusive games I've ever seen for a system. And a lot of the
That's
best
too
games
bad
you
that-
could only play on Xbox One.
That's too bad that that Battletoads game was forgotten. I didn't even know that game actually came out. Battletoads is actually kind of cool, at least the NES one, although that game's unfairly difficult. And this game was an Xbox One exclusive, but now I believe you can download it on your PC through Steam or Epic Games or something.
Well, they were also available for PC. And
It
or
wasn't
eventually came to
initially.
other consoles. And even Microsoft mainstays like Halo had a rough time on Xbox One. The Master Chief Collection launched in an abysmal state. Halo 5 was Halo 5. Gears of War just kept trucking along and only really appealed to Gears of War fans at that point. And even then, some Gears of War fans don't care anymore. And
Yeah.
Forza's good, but it's
too bad.
fucking Forza! The only reasons to get the Xbox One was for the Xbox Game Pass service, which was a great deal. You get all these different games for a small fee per month. The backwards compatibility they started offering later down the line, which was a legitimate knock against the PS4, which had literally nothing of this nature. Or just
Okay.
because your friends are on Xbox and you wanted to play with them online. There was no other reason to get the Xbox One. But the Xbox brand has millions of diehard fans. No matter what, you want to stick with Xbox, and over time, the Xbox One with revisions became more affordable, consumer-friendly, and powerful than what Sony was offering. Due to its similarities with the PS4, most multi-platform games came to Xbox One, which didn't make it immediately unappealing. Millions of these console sales are from people who literally just play FIFA and Call of Duty. And wouldn't you know, I have a console for you. The Nintendo DS.
Okay, that's random. Oh, the NES.
Coming in at 61 million units, the Nintendo Entertainment System took the world by storm in the mid-80s. You'd think for something this popular and iconic, it would be in the 6 billion units sold range. Like water. Frankly, the NES did a ton of heavy lifting popularizing video games as a viable market, a medium you could trust. The Atari 2600 initiated the home console boom, but failed to capitalize on it in the long run, burning retailers and consumers out with the lack of quality and quantity control. Thus, the original Atari only sold 30 million units, which is pretty surprising considering how popular and iconic it was. Though back then, these things were huge investments, especially considering how new the video game industry was. Not as many people were willing to splurge on that kind of entertainment.
Yeah.
I'll think about it. The NES effectively doubled Atari's install base by not only being more trustworthy, but being home to games every kid had to play. You needed to get Super Mario Brothers. You needed to get The Legend of Zelda, and these were experiences that would last you a while. A system as popular as the NES in the 80s would have sold twice as many units today. I feel like capping it off at 61 million is just because of it being released in the early days of home console gaming. Because the statistics just don't make any sense. So in 1991, you're trying to tell me only a little over 1% of the world had access to Snow Bros?
Sure.
Okay.
There's the 3DS.
Now, this is interesting. The Nintendo 3DS. Frankly, I think only 4 people bought these things. They just like getting all the colors. Roughly 76 million sold. That's no easy feat, but that's pretty much half of what its predecessor sold.
True.
Nintendo DS, spoiler. But why such a steep decline? Gamers would praise the 3DS nonstop, lauding it as this massive success when there were more PSP-like systems that sold more. Like the PSP. And that was considered to be a slight disappointment. But see, gamers like the 3DS, and they aren't people. The 3DS didn't win over the same casual market the DS did, mainly because around this time, those users moved over to smartphone games. Any casual-oriented titles on the 3DS that were sequels to DS successes usually didn't turn out that great. I mean, the 3DS was fundamentally a DS with some pro guts. And it's like casuals don't care if Nintendogs is running on a dual-core CPU now. They already moved on from the DS line of handhelds, and the glasses-free 3D display wasn't going to bring them back because they weren't interested in buying anything that was 3D outside of a 90-minute trip to the movie theater. Thus, Nintendo's hit list decreased. The 3DS primarily appealed to core fans and kids. And with how cheap the system got, you can't blame some people for jumping into it, even if only one game interested them. I know for a fact millions of people would just buy it for one game or two, plus many fans would upgrade their handhelds when new ones would get announced. This number does not represent the amount of active users at one time, not by a long shot. To be fair, you can make that argument for all video game systems, but the 3DS had 6 revisions, with each and every one giving some knuckleheads a reason to upgrade. I've seen people upgrade to the new 2DS XL because it looks so nice. The top screen looks like a smartphone. Yes, they went to public school. The 3DS was a handheld many bought because they wanted Nintendo experiences and they weren't gonna invest in a corpse. Yet outside of that core demographic, there really wasn't a reason for most casual users to care about the system. It looked like a kid's toy. Many people were embarrassed to play it in public. Yeah, well, guess what? It doesn't want to be seen being played by you. I mean, Nintendo's advertising during this generation was so bad that many haven't even heard of this thing yet. And when they did,
this one?
Can you blame people for being embarrassed for liking Nintendo? But because of a vast and appealing lineup of software, consistent hardware revisions, and a gimmick that got some people interested at launch, the 3DS sold well. Just not as well as other Nintendo handhelds.
Okay, PSP.
What happened here? The day the PSP sells over 80 million is the day Well, I don't want to finish that sentence and f myself over. How did the PSP sell around 81 million units? Who talks about this system anymore? The PlayStation Portable was a big deal, no doubt, but anybody I knew who had one, I never saw them play it. Fast forward to today, and it's not discussed nearly as much as you'd think it would be, considering it sold as many units as it did. Now, that may be because I'm sheltered, but the PSP overall seems to be something most people look back at fondly, but don't want to revisit a ton. Kind of like an old iPod. Like, oh man, so many memories with this thing. Want to use it for music? Oh, no. A lot of people will say the PSP sold well because everybody knew it was easy to hack and you could put emulators on it. Most people don't even know the 3DS exists. Why would they know that? I think the PSP sold this much due to the excitement of what it was and represented. The PlayStation brand was on top of the world. The PS1 and PS2 won their respective generations with record-breaking numbers. Everybody owned these consoles. They dethroned Nintendo as the market leader, and now they're entering the portable scene with a handheld that can do PS2 quality visuals? We were all used to 2D sprites on the Game Boy Advance. We could all only dream of taking PS2 games on the go, and the PSP promised exactly that. Dozens of articles claimed that the PSP was going to win the war against the Nintendo DS because, by God, why wouldn't it? You got Spider-Man 2 at the launch, and this ain't no phony baloney Game Boy Advance or Nintendo DS version. Nah, this is gonna be the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube Spider-Man 2 on the go. Do you have no shame? So I think the PSP did live up to the hype of being a home console to go. I mean, games like this on something so small is still crazy impressive to me. It had a decent amount of console ports, so you could be playing that PS2 game just in a morgue. But some games weren't the console versions. They were watered-down PSP versions, like Spider-Man 2. This isn't the same game as the consoles. It's still an impressive handheld game for the time, comparable to a console game in many ways. But it's not the console game, so it makes the PSP feel like, oh, it can't do this. But then the games that were the exact console games on the PSP, well, the PSP was comparable, but not as powerful as the PS2. It lacked the two triggers, a second stick. Even if it were a perfect port of the game, it would still be inferior on the PSP. Camera control there would always be some garbage workaround. Exclusive games in the biggest franchises were relegated to PSP entries. Most of them were inconsequential to their series. It wasn't the next Grand Theft Auto game. It was Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories, a side game. The same goes for the God of War series or Gran Turismo, Killzone. A lot of these PSP versions of console mainstays were done by B-grade developers, not numbered mainline entries in their respective series. It made the PSP feel like something you could totally skip and not miss anything on. Either way you slice it, the PSP was impressive. There just wasn't a lot to keep players coming back. Yes, it was console quality on the go, but that can only get you so far after a purchase. You go, wow, this is just like a PS2 game, but that means it's not super designed for portable play, and on top of that, the PSP used a spinning disc drive, which, good luck playing that on a horse. If you play it at home on the couch, why not just play your PS2? If you're playing it on the go, it's not as portable friendly as something like the DS. There were better alternatives in both scenarios. I'm still in awe playing the PSP. It's so tiny yet plays games of this graphical quality. However, I think many players bought one, played it a bit, then kind of just moved on. It had some amazing games and impressive hardware, but it just felt like many people bought the PSP out of hype, liked it, but didn't really go back to it.
Yeah, Game Boy Advance.
As a kid, the true success of some products normally doesn't dawn upon you. NASDAQ was only my 47th word.
When the Game Boy Advance came out in the early 2000s, yeah, we were pretty damn impressed by it. The graphics was like a Super Nintendo on the go because we had been used to the Game Boy, which the graphics didn't look that good on, you know? That was the handheld that lasted the test of time. And the Game Boy was supported from 89 all the way to all the way until like 2003 or something, which at that point was Game Boy Color exclusives coming out, and the Game Boy Advance had already been released in 2000, 2001, I forget the year. But it seemed amazing at the time. Of course, when the DS came out, that seemed even more amazing because it looked like N64 graphics, actually better than N64 graphics. But and then, you know, I found out later the Game Boy Advance actually has better graphics than the Super Nintendo after all. Anyways, continuing on.
But back then, it felt like everybody and their mother owned a Game Boy Advance. And with it selling 81.5 million units, that was practically the case. Though, it sold roughly the same as the PSP? That doesn't seem right. It was almost the de facto game system. No matter who you were, you had a Game Boy Advance, and that was due to a few reasons. The price entry was incredibly low. This was one of the cheapest and easily accessible game systems out there at the time. The name and brand was undeniably recognizable. Even these days, people still refer to anything with a battery as a Game Boy. It won't hold up in court, but it just goes to show how
Oh, God. He just reminded me of something. I used to work at the Olive Garden back in 2014 and until like early 2015. But anyway, this coworker of mine, I'm older than him. I'm older than him by a month. And when I would take my lunch break, I'd be on my 2DS, not my 3. I didn't have a 3DS. I had a 2DS because it was $70 cheaper than the 3DS, and I never used the 3D features. I know it's bulky, but I could fit it in my pocket anyway, and it has a standby mode with a little switch at the bottom to do that. But anyways, like, whenever I'd play my 2DS on my lunch break, he would be like, oh, you're on your Game Boy? I'm like, just like, oh my god. The Game Boy hasn't been a thing for, like, you know, about it was 2014, so it hadn't been a thing for like 10 years, you know, or like 9 years or whatever. The Game Boy hadn't been a thing for quite a long time by that point, and he still called it a Game Boy. Another coworker called it a Game Boy, once again, younger than me, and I'm just like, what the fuck is wrong with you guys, you know? It's not a Game Boy. It's a 2DS. It plays modern games. The graphics are miles and miles ahead of the Game Boy. My goodness. Why are you calling it a Game Boy? You know, and then like, somebody even said, oh, so you said it's a 2DS, so basically it's just a DS. And I was like, no, a 2DS plays 3DS games and DS games. It just doesn't have the 3D feature. So it's like they suddenly thought because it wasn't called it's like this one guy saw, not the same guy who called it a Game Boy, it's a different guy. This one guy, he thought it was because I called it a 2DS, that it was basically just a regular DS. Like, no, the 3DS was not just a DS with 3D features. It's a new console that has 3DS games that happens to be backwards compatible with the DS. The 2DS is the same thing. It plays 3DS games and is also backwards compatible with the DS. It just doesn't have the 3D features. So it costs like $70 less. You know, having to explain this to people was so irritating. It's like, why don't you guys get it? You know, just, you know, go on Google or something. Wikipedia. Jeez. All right, moving on. I just got reminded, thanks to what Scott the Wasp said about how people always called anything with a battery a Game Boy.
Iconic the title of Game Boy is. And of course, the games.
Yes.
Not only did the Game Boy Advance have
title.
constant releases of all types, whether they were Nintendo first-party titles, third-party, or licensed kids games, but the Game Boy Advance was compatible with Game Boy and Game Boy Color games as well.
That was also cool,
luring in owners of those past systems and new ones, as it already had a library of hundreds of games upon release. There was something for everybody here. Something for the core gamer and something for their stepdad's daughter. And with 3 redesigns, people had incentive to upgrade from the first model to the newer Game Boy Advance SP.
Maybe someday, if I could actually find that game, when I'm in a better living situation, I might do a live stream of that Fire Emblem. That was the first Fire Emblem to be released outside of Japan. I think it was the 7th ever Fire Emblem game. I actually played it I've beaten it on normal and hard, all quests. And it was a blast. Of course, my favorite Fire Emblem I've played, actually, is Fire Emblem Path of Radiance on the GameCube, because it looked so amazing at the time. And I still think the graphics hold up today, to be honest. Unfortunately, I haven't played any of the newer ones that came out for the 3DS, or the newest one that came out for Switch, but maybe someday I will.
Which makes me think 81.5 million units seems a bit lower than I'd expect. I think what stopped the GBA from selling even more was the lack of a definitive hook outside of, it's a Game Boy, but more. Nintendo truly excelled in sales when they introduced something new with a gimmick that's not just, it's more powerful. The Game Boy Advance is probably their most recent success that didn't have any major gimmicks involved. It was a video game machine through and through, which is why so many people adore it. But looking at its successor, it's obvious while Nintendo can successfully make a standard game console in the modern day, they still need a specific hook to lure everybody in. The Xbox 360 is well known as the winner of the battle between it and the PlayStation 3. Who did it pay off? 84
then they lost by a little
units
bit,
sold.
yeah.
The 360 dominated the better part of the battle for the 7th generation, and for good reason. Nobody wanted a PlayStation 3. Well, in actuality, I think everybody wanted a PS3 to some extent. The follow-up to the uber-popular
It was
PlayStation
really
2
expensive when it first came out.
was the most powerful thing on the planet. Move over, Christ.
$600.
But that price point was disgusting. And the amount of games just wasn't appealing. The Xbox 360 had a year head start on the PS3, had far more games, was considerably more powerful, and was pretty comparable to the PS3 graphics-wise. Even though that system was more powerful, and many developers didn't have the time or money to fully take advantage of it, so they developed games for the more accessible Xbox 360 first and foremost, then maybe brought them over to PS3. Exclusives like Gears of War and Halo brought millions over to the 360, while the PlayStation 3 was struggling to sell. The online play was better on Xbox, many preferred the controller, digital Netflix streaming was exclusive for a bit, and in 2010, they introduced the Kinect, which revolutionized the act of hatred. That brought an entire new subset of consumers over to the brand, all of them casuals who simply thought the act of kicking the air was worth $150. Because of this, the Xbox 360 became the face of hardcore gaming. That original model and controller are burned into my brain as what you'd think of in an unfinished basement setup. But after the Kinect launched, it felt like Microsoft put the 360 on autopilot. The only exclusives releasing at that point were more Kinect games, which frankly, after about a year being on the market, I think most people who bought the thing gave up on it, or they were sequels to series that already kind of peaked. The entire marketing campaign for Halo 3 was finishing the fight. Do it again. Right when the 360 started to pump the brakes,
at least Conan O'Brien and Andy Richter in Halo 4, which I learned from watching the Clueless Gamer segment on the Team Coco YouTube channel. But, yeah. Whoopsie. And as far as I know, I guess I heard Halo 3 was bad or something, but then Halo 4 was a lot better, so I guess there's that.
PS3 was entering a bit of a renaissance, which brings us here. Just barely beating the Xbox 360 right when the generation came to a close.
Yeah.
The PlayStation 3 sold 80...
The PS3 was playing catch up the whole time until the end of the generation. What do you think? Is it fair to say that the Red Ring of Death might have helped the Xbox 360 sold more because people were having dead Xboxes, so they bought new ones? Let me know in the comments below if you think that actually if that actually inflated the sales numbers. Maybe it didn't. Maybe it actually caused people to just buy a Wii instead or switch over to PS3. I don't know.
87.5.
Although no, they couldn't have, because that was happening when the 360 first came out a year before the Wii and the PS3 though.
Million units, which surprised many. Like, I think when the 360 started to pump the brakes, the PS3 was entering a bit of a renaissance.
Oh yeah.
Which brings us here. Just barely beating the Xbox 360 right when the generation came to a close. The PlayStation 3 sold 87.5 million units, which surprised many. Like, I think most people still think the 360 won this war. This system was almost always seen as a flop in comparison to the competition, being overpriced, overpowered, undergood. But like I said, by the midway point in the generation, Microsoft stopped giving people as much of a reason to buy a 360, while Sony was continuing to pump out exclusives. In June,
it's what happens when you're trying to catch up. You try to put out the best you can, you know? Don't get me wrong. I mean, yeah, the Super Nintendo has better games than the Sega Genesis for the most part. Sega has Sonic. Super Nintendo has a bunch of great games. Mario, Link, Mario, Zelda, Metroid, Chrono Trigger, so on. But it does, a lot of consoles that were behind in the generations have better games. In general, I think people remember the N64 with more fondness than the PS1. Don't get me wrong, the PS1 has 4 Twisted Metal games, and the 4th one was actually my favorite one. It has Oddworld, the original Oddworld, and a bunch of other really awesome games. Final Fantasy VII, of course. But the N64 had, you know, a bunch of more games that people love to play together more often, especially since it was the first home console with built-in 4-player functionality. So you could easily do 4-player Mario Kart 64, 4-player Diddy Kong Racing, 4-player GoldenEye, 4-player Perfect Dark, 4-player of the original Super Smash Bros., which honestly is probably more easier to pick up and play than any games that came out later because there's fewer characters to choose from. Although I'd still say the original is the worst Smash Bros. Because they're still getting their feet wet, still getting started with the series. I think Ultimate is the best Smash Bros., which, you know, the one on the Switch. Anyways, continuing on. All these great games, but the N64 sold about 32 million units. The PS1 sold over 100 million units. I think it was like 110 or something. The PS1 dominated the N64, but people, I'd say, remember the N64 with more fondness because of those amazing multiplayer experiences they had with their friends at home, or if they went over to a friend's house or whatever the case may be. Older generations in college, you know? Anyways, let's continue on with the PS3.
June of 2013, I saw so many people buy a PS3 just to play The Last of Us, and that was even the year the PlayStation 4 released. people as much of a reason to buy a 360, while Sony was continuing to pump out exclusives. In
Yep.
June of 2013, I saw so many people...
Oh yeah, so I was trying to point out that sometimes the console that's behind actually might have better games. It's just that what a console did earlier helped them out more, or, you know, other factors.
buy a PS3 just to play The Last of Us, and that was even the year the PlayStation 4 released.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that people would buy the PS3 in 2013 just to play The Last of Us when that was the system the PS4 came out. That is actually pretty incredible.
Sony was hell-bent on saving the PS3 after it was flopping hard, redesigning it twice. These models may not have been as capable as the original. I mean, they removed the Spider-Man font. Frankly, the PS3 didn't sell initially because it cost too much and there just weren't enough exclusives and third-party games. And most of the third-party games ran better on 360 anyways because it was easier for developers to program for. However, Sony addressed many of the complaints as the generation went on, and I think the PS3 is a shining example that poor sales at the start...
I have some videos of that Twisted Metal game, but I don't have very many of them because it was from the Bad Brothers PS3. Not the Good Brother.
Those don't mean things won't work out in the end. Just you wait.
Yeah,
this was the
Wii.
biggest sensation of all time. And it didn't even sell 102 million. I'm not sure if there will ever be something as hot as the Wii during its heyday.
Oh
or
my
at the very
gosh.
least something that feels like it. Every store you'd look, they'd be sold out. People were flipping them for 3 times more on eBay. And this wasn't just the hardcore fans wanting them. Everybody knew how hard it was to get a Wii for the first 3 years of the product's life. And everybody wanted one. It was a sensation.
When the Wii first came out, I didn't understand about like waiting outside a store overnight to get a product. Like, I didn't understand that concept. I never actually had been through that before, ever. You know, of course, when the Wii came out, that was the Wii came out when I on the same year I turned 18. So before then, I wasn't the one actually buying the consoles. It was usually my mom who was. So, anyways, but I remember like every store I went to when the Wii came out, there was no way of purchasing it. It was just impossible to get. Luckily, I was able to get it a month after, like in early I think it was late November or something. I forget. Me and, ironically, the brother I don't like, but anyways, me and him, we waited in front of Target overnight with a large crowd of people. At first, there was only maybe 10 other people there, but then the line just kept getting bigger and bigger. We were like the fifth. Me and him were like the fifth and sixth people in line. Fortunately, what was really cool is because I had my DS, and so did some other people who were waiting in line. So all night I would be playing DS with these guys I just met, and just having a blast, you know. So it was still fun, you know. It was a fun, nostalgic experience, actually. I wouldn't mind having an experience like that, waiting for something again, actually, just to actually, you know, meet some people and play some games with them before getting something, getting a new console. That happened when, let's see, it happened again in 2014, I think. I was playing Super Smash Bros. For 3DS. With some people I just met right in front of GameStop, and I was waiting over in line. I was waiting for the store to open, so I can get. What the hell game was I trying to get? I don't remember what it was. I think it might have been Super Smash Bros. For Wii U, because I know that came out like a month after the 3DS one. I think it might have been that one, but now I'm kind of surprised because the Wii U sold so terribly. I don't know, but anyway, some of these people were waiting for like the Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire remakes, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. I didn't really bother with those. I didn't feel like buying another Pokemon remake. I wanted to focus on buying the newer ones. But yeah, that was a fun experience too. Anyways, yeah, getting the Wii was kind of hard to get at first. It sold so well.
It didn't matter you didn't know what it did, you just knew it was what you needed to buy. And it was all because the Wii captured the world's imagination. Utilizing motion controls to swing tennis rackets, it made tennis possible for many of us. And the initial store you'd look, they'd be sold out. People were flipping them for 3 times more on eBay, and this wasn't just the hardcore fans wanting them. Everybody knew how hard it was to get a Wii for the first 3 years of the product's life.
Yeah.
And everybody wanted one. It was a sensation. It didn't matter you didn't know what it did, you just knew it was what you needed to buy. And
Yeah.
it was all because the Wii captured the world's imagination. Utilizing motion controls to swing tennis rackets, it made tennis possible for many of us. And the initial price of $249.99 was lower than the Xbox 360 and definitely lower than the PlayStation 3.
Oh, yeah, that
And
helps
was
a
because
lot.
the Wii was incredibly underpowered. It was basically just a souped-up GameCube spec-wise. The Wii cost roughly $2 to produce. The games helped showcase how amazing these controllers were. Online capabilities allowed users to download classic games, and with the Wii just flat-out being able to play
There were
GameCube
more
discs
choices than that. There was Commodore 64 on the Virtual Console, which I actually forgot to mention in my AVGN React. I was talking about like what platforms were available on the Wii Virtual Console, and I literally forgot to mention why I said it, which was there was also Commodore 64 games in there. There actually were. I remember there being Commodore 64 on there too.
Playing games from all prior Nintendo home consoles and then some. The price was affordable to many. So why did the PlayStation 1 outsell it? I think that fact alone makes Nintendo hate the alphabet. Well, the Wii's success could also be attributed to it being a fad. Millions bought it, loved it, and kept buying software for it, but many of the sales were from people who bought it just because they thought it was their civil duty to do so. Buy it for Wii Sports, maybe buy Wii Fit afterwards, you're done. Didn't help that Nintendo stopped supporting the platform as much around 2011, and this was the time where if you didn't already have a Wii, you probably weren't going to buy one then. After everyone who wanted a Wii bought one, they were readily available. There wasn't that huge urge to buy one as much, especially considering there wasn't a ton of compelling software releasing from 2011 onwards, while the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 were...
I have a bunch of Kirby's Return to Dreamland footage of 4-player co-op, and there would have been there'd be a lot more of the videos, but unfortunately, the external hard drive I was saving my videos to gave out, and I lost a lot of videos, not just Kirby's Return to Dreamland, but the StarCraft and Brood War campaigns, and a bunch of other stuff, and I'm pretty pissed about that, because there's a lot of videos missing as a result of that. But anyways, you can check out these videos if you'd like. Some of my best stuff. My friends and I, we bickered and also worked together well and had a fun time.
Much more exciting.
Nicely done, Scott!
Around then. These consoles had a future. The Wii felt like it was old news, especially considering the lackluster graphics, not even including HDMI. There were some great core titles on Wii. But if those interested you, the 360 and PS3 were probably going to satisfy you a bit more. The Wii appealed to a casual market, and that's the reason it was such a runaway success. But that success was fleeting. It didn't stick around, and sales started to slow down. It's obvious the Wii did well, but there's a reason why developers still preferred to make games for competing platforms. I think Nintendo could have made this the best-selling system of all time, but the weak hardware and third-party support forced consumers to give up on the Wii quickly. Hell, Nintendo did, and thus, after a while, there wasn't a lot of excitement in buying one anymore. Yeah, it only sold 101 million units. I can do that in my sleep. The original PlayStation. Right off the bat, we have to comment on how incredible of a success this was. The first system by a newcomer. This wasn't Nintendo, this wasn't Sega, this was Sony. But it was proven that during this time, anybody could make a video game console that successfully competed with Nintendo. Sega just proved that with the Sega Genesis, and Sony just went too goddamn far.
Yeah, like I said, the best console war was Super Nintendo versus Sega Genesis. People still talk about it today. It's so memorable, and it was a close battle for first place. Super Nintendo won. They won that battle, but Sega Genesis was a strong competitor. In this case, though, the PS1 dominated the N64, but like I said, I think there's more fond memories of the N64 thanks to its 4-player action.
The PS1. It's incredible how successful it was. At the time, a video game system selling 100 million units, it was unheard of. The use of compact discs can be credited to a lot of its success.
That's true,
These things were cheaper to produce and could hold so much more information than regular game cartridges.
That's true.
The PS1 was significantly cheaper than the Sega Saturn and released 2 years prior to the Nintendo 64, meaning when that system launched with 2 games, well, 1 game and 1 event. Right when that system was getting started, the PS1 already had hundreds of games. They were getting sequels to blockbuster PS1 exclusives that already released. All the third-party franchises you'd expect on Nintendo, well, they went over to the PlayStation.
That's
and on
true.
top of that,
Metal Gear,
you could play your music CDs on this thing.
Final
Still
Fantasy.
a step away from Season 4 of Wings, I know, but still! The PlayStation had literally everything going for it during this time, and it didn't get discontinued until 2006, the year the PlayStation 3 released.
That's
Even
amazing.
after the PS2 came out, it was a solid budget option for many people, especially with its cheaper redesign. This thing was a runaway success. It's one of the easiest success stories to analyze. Well, that and...
Yeah, the PS4
The
did
PS4
so well.
did as well as it did because it wasn't an Xbox One or Wii U. The Xbox One shot itself in the foot. We already know that. And because of the resistance many consumers had towards the Xbox brand at the time, Sony took advantage of that. They highlighted all the issues people had with the Xbox One and clarified that they wouldn't be a problem on the PS4, while also revealing their system cost $100 less and was more powerful. It made me look at anybody who bought this as a fucking moron. I think the Xbox One had more compelling exclusives at launch, but it didn't matter because eventually the PS4 started to get blockbuster after blockbuster exclusive game, a feat that the Xbox One just never reached. Frankly, I do truly believe the PS4 did as well as it did because it was really the only choice for many. I mean, you didn't want that because it was more expensive, less powerful, and already proved itself as untrustworthy in an alley. You didn't want that because... just buy a PS4. People flocked to Amazon after Sony's E3 2013.
So I mentioned earlier how it was hard to get a Wii at first. I had to wait in front of a Target all night to get a Wii. The Wii U was super easy to get. When I waited in front of that same Target the night before, there was nobody else there. I didn't even have to do it. I ended up being the very first person in my hometown of Santa Rosa to get a Wii U at Target. It was that easy to get in comparison. And I got it at launch. Like, it was... not many people were buying it. A huge difference. So yeah, exactly what Scott said. If you're not somebody who favors a specific brand, you're obviously going to pick the PS4. You're going to pick the PS4 because it was cheaper than the Xbox One. Didn't force you to use this Kinect thing that you didn't care about. Had more. It would end up having more exclusives. I mean, the Wii U was already like $300 anyways. I think $350 for the deluxe model, which became the only model, and the price would go down eventually. But the fact is, like, there weren't that many games on the Wii U in comparison, you know? Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed my Wii U. I liked playing through all of New Super Mario Bros. U and New Super Luigi U, Super Mario 3D World. I did enjoy Mario Kart 8. That was my favorite online experience I ever had with a Mario Kart game. My favorite Mario Kart game of all time is Mario Kart DS, which is, by the way, the first one to have online. But Mario Kart 8 is a spectacular game besides how terrible the battle mode is until they fixed it in the Switch port Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I loved playing Super Smash Bros. For Wii U. Honestly, I wouldn't even mind playing that game now. It's just I feel like if I did, I'd get kind of confused because the movesets are different than they are in Ultimate for some fighters. But the Super Smash Bros. For Wii U was my favorite Smash Bros. Game until Ultimate came out. And I loved the Super Smash Bros. For 3DS was also fun as well, although it prevented the use of ice climbers, which was stupid. Could have just put ice climbers in the Wii U version and just not having the 3DS version or something. Jeez, you didn't have to make both games completely identical. I mean, there were a lot of... I enjoyed Super Mario Maker on the Wii U. That was awesome. Obviously, the second game has a lot more you can do on it. I also loved playing Madden NFL 13. It's the only Madden that was released on the Wii U. But I love how in that game, if you're doing multiplayer, you select your plays on the gamepad screen so the opposing player cannot see which plays you pick. That's actually one of the problems with playing Madden with other people, is that they could actually still watch you look at your playbook because both playbooks are on the screen. It's lame. Anyways, but the fact of the matter is there were a lot more better choices of games, mostly on the PS4 and some on the Xbox One, of course. But yeah, don't get me wrong, Wii U was fun, but clearly the PS4 was the best of that generation.
Going to pre-order PS4s, which I always found silly because, like I said, I do think Xbox had a better initial showing of software during that E3. Look at the PS4's first year. The viewer discretion is advised. What did as well as it did because it was really the only choice for many. I mean, you didn't want that because it was more expensive, less powerful, and already proved itself as untrustworthy in an alley. You didn't want that because just buy a PS4. People flocked to Amazon after Sony's E3 2013 showing to pre-order PS4s, which I always found silly because, like I said, I do think Xbox had a better initial showing of software during that E3.
Yeah.
Look at the PS4's first year. The viewer discretion is advised. Well, I think the initial success of the system had a lot to do with the Xbox One's failure. Eventually, the PS4 found its footing with must-have exclusives, and on top of that, it had all the third-party games and the best versions of them. Now, after both companies redesigned their consoles and pushed upgrades out the door with better specs, the Xbox One X was more powerful than the PS4 Pro. But at this point, it didn't matter. The war was already over. While the Xbox One became the more advanced system, the PS4 still had the games people wanted to play.
And it started out the most advanced system.
What do you want me to say here? It's the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. Of course, I will admit the Game Boy and Game Boy Color aren't separate systems, and the Color was just a mere refresh of the Game Boy when I'm dead and buried. Still not buried, but Nintendo groups these two together, so sure, it counts.
Yeah.
But the reasoning behind the success is pretty much the exact same as the Game Boy Advance. It was the go-to thing to get kids for the back seat. It was cheap enough to buy one or even a couple for multiple kid households. The inclusion of Tetris...
Yeah, back in the 90s, my mom actually bought me a Game Boy, and she bought TMNT 2 for it. Yes, my first ever Game Boy game was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game on it, and it was lots of fun. She bought my bad brother a Game Boy. I forget which game came included with that one. And she also bought my good brother a Game Boy. All three of us had our own Game Boys with their own games on it. Maybe the good brother got Tetris. I don't know. He was good at Tetris at the time. I remember that. But yeah, it was a blast. There were so many games I loved playing on. Of course, later on, I got the Super Game Boy, so I could play my Game Boy games on the big screen, which was even better, and I did that a lot.
In the package, well, that lured in millions right there. Not only kids, but their parents as well. This was one of the first instances of a Nintendo product being marketed towards everybody, not just kids. And we can see that works well for them. The initial price was $90, $70 for the redesigned Game Boy Pocket. It was so cheap for a game system. You didn't have much of an excuse. And if you did, well, you were probably trying to cover up something. Other handhelds had color screens, split screens for that matter. But the Game Boy had affordability and a never-ending game lineup to...
Oh, I know. There was so many games.
Is definitely a little skewed considering not only are we including the original Game Boy, but Game Boy Color as well. Though, to be fair, the Xbox One X is included in the Xbox One sales, the PS4 Pro with the PS4, the new 3DS with the 3DS, and that had exclusive games just like the Game Boy Color did. The amount of new 3DS software, though... What are you standing there for? Go!
Ooh, yeah.
How the hell did this happen? The Nintendo DS sold over 154 million units.
It was incredible.
Am I alone with originally thinking the Wii was a bigger phenomenon? Well, everybody was talking about not being able to buy a Wii. Everybody was buying 5 DSs each.
I think the Wii was considered more of a phenomenon. It's just that the DS was so convenient because it was portable. It was more affordable than a PSP, and there were so many games for it even when it first launched. And sequels to Game Boy Advance games and new games, new series and stuff. I think the Wii was considered more of a phenomenon because of the motion controls, but the DS was more successful because it was convenient, affordable, and quite impressive for the time.
Think about how the Wii's success was fleeting and how software became sparse in the final years. And flip them, the Nintendo DS kept rolling. It had a very similar strategy to the Wii, really reeling in the casual consumers with games like Brain Age. However, it did a better job of appealing to literally everybody.
Yeah.
There were games of all kinds on the DS, and the system was at a power level where you could make games for it on a budget. It was cheaper to make DS games for many developers because you didn't have to worry about games not being asked for the eyes. And the games kept coming well after its successor to the 3DS release. Pokemon games kept coming out for the DS until 2012, and with this being a cheaper handheld with multiple revisions, it wasn't uncommon to upgrade. I got the DSi after I had the DS Lite. It's good to know I'm 2 of this number. It's just unbelievable the handheld sold this many. But to be fair, families get multiple DSs for all the siblings, and handhelds get scuffed up more often, thus you're more likely to upgrade them. To something like the Wii, well, the family shares that, and when they release a revision, it's usually just to cut costs and offer a lower price for new customers. And there's really no incentive for people to buy multiple consoles, while the DS was a completely different story. This was the go-to handheld. Everybody had one because there wasn't much bad press around it. Outside of Scrabble using the word fucker. Of course your mom liked you owning a DS. You did math and whatever the this is. So it's understandable why a handheld and not a console like this would be such a huge sales juggernaut.
Yeah.
And then there was Sony. The PlayStation 2 sold 155 million units, which is obscene. Look at this graph. There's almost no point to having a graph at this point. The PS2 sales numbers can be attributed to many of the same reasons why the PS1 succeeded, but the difference is the competition wasn't completely arthritic. The GameCube was more powerful than the PS2. It used mini DVDs, but still. And the Xbox was so much more powerful and also used DVDs. But the PS2 had backwards compatibility with the PS1, instantly making a no-brainer for the 100 million PS1 owners. It once again had a year head start on the market. It could play DVD movies right out the box when DVD players were expensive and not as common. Many people just said, "F it, I need a DVD player, a way to play Ants, and a way to play Ants. I'd be stupid not to." Let me repeat that again. I'd be stupid not to. The third-party support carried over from the PS1, and Sony was once again funding countless exclusives that rocked the world. Sure, the Xbox had a lot of what the PS2 was offering, but the PlayStation brand became one of the most widely trusted in all of gaming. After 100 million PS1 users saw the PS2 was here and could play movies and all their old PS1 games, in addition to the big new releases, and pretty much all of them considering developers didn't want to miss out on the PS2. I mean, the only games that missed the system? Well, can you blame me for going with GameCube?
I think it just goes to show that the best-selling consoles aren't always the most powerful, or they don't always have the best games of the generation or whatever.
True.
Those elements help, but at the end of the day, it depends on the context of it all. Like, is it the PlayStation 2? If it is, it'll do well. I don't make the rules. Okay, well, that was a way to blow past 30 minutes. That still doesn't change the fact that I was robbed of everything last week, but everything will be fine. I'm looking at the bright side. I may have been robbed of everything, but that means I can't get robbed anymore. That's my solution to everything. Scared of home invasion? Go homeless!
Oh my god. That's horrible. Do not take that advice. Homeless is not something anybody should want. Okay. Well, that sure was a blast to watch. Can't deny it. Scott the Woz is incredible, incredibly hilarious, and had great analysis for why these consoles sold as well as they did, and how some of them, despite how well they sold, didn't seem to be so well known despite that. Like, one thing that's amazing about the PS2 is that, if I'm not mistaken, I think it only had 2 controller ports, and it still was the highest selling console of all time. The GameCube had 4 controller ports. I believe the original Xbox had 4. It's just, when we had an original Xbox, I remember only having 3 controller ports available. Maybe the 4th one was some kind of, I don't know, extra storage or something. I don't know. And not to mention, the original Xbox is the first console I could think of that actually had its own internal hard drive, which was pretty impressive for the time. After that, every console had their own internal hard drive. I mean, it was unheard of for a video game system to have an internal hard drive. Only computers had it. So that was pretty sweet. You had to, otherwise you had to, cartridge consoles would have, you know, the cartridges you can save on them, but disc consoles, you required a memory card to actually be able to save. That kind of sucked, them being forced to make that extra expense. But But yeah, I think one thing, most people agree, one thing that really helped the PS2 is that, yes, it plays DVDs, and it was more affordable than buying an actual DVD player. So, obviously, it was a no-brainer. Even if you were never going to play a video game on it, you would still buy it because you wanted to be able to play some DVDs. That said, thank you so much for watching. This was quite a blast. So, how many did I get right? So obviously, I already knew the PS2 was number 1. I knew that the DS was number 2. I knew that the Game Boy was number 3. I guess I thought the PS1 was number 4, but it turned out the PS4 was number 4. How ironic! The PS4 is number 4. The PS1 is number 5. I was right about the Wii being number 6, and then I forget what 7th was. Was it the Game Boy Advance? No, it was the PS3. 8th was the Xbox 360. 9th was the PSP. No. 9th was the 3DS. 10th was the PSP. 11th was the Game Boy Advance. 12th was something. Now I'm forgetting everything. It was something. I don't know. Oh, I think it was the Switch. 13th with the Xbox One, and then 14th was the Super Nintendo. Which would mean that 15th would be the N64. 16th would be the Atari 2600. 17th would be the Sega Genesis. 18th, I don't know. Maybe the TurboGrafx. Maybe it was the TurboGrafx 16 or the Sega Master System. I don't know. After that, it's like... it plummets way down from there. Anyways, I was always I was initially quite fascinated by the PS4 when it first came out. I had considered getting one for many years, but I just never got one. The reason why, though, I never got one is because I just didn't find the exclusives as appealing. Like, I like Nintendo consoles because that's the only way you're going to play Mario, Metroid, Zelda, Kirby, Pokemon, and a variety of other franchises. But a lot of games that came out for the PS4 and the Xbox One, I could just play them on my PC, so I just didn't feel a reason to make the expense of buying another console if I already have a perfectly capable computer that can play these games. I will admit it's not the most powerful computer out there. It's got 8 gigabytes of RAM. Its graphics card is not the greatest. It doesn't have an SSD. It has a SATA hard drive. Of course, I bought it way back in 2016, so it might have something to do with it. But it can play new games. I just have to kind of lower the graphics settings, unfortunately. Someday I'll probably try to get a gaming computer, like an actual gaming computer, but that's something to think about in the future when, I'm more financially stable, I guess. Anyways, hopefully, I do hope that there'll be, I do plan to have more original content. It's just, it's kind of dependent on what's going on with the living situation. My wife and I are trying to get into this apartment complex. We're hoping we can get in. We still don't know for sure if we will, because we can't stand where we currently live. But if we get in, I'll have more live streams from home. I'll actually be recording my React videos at home instead of in the car or outdoors all the time. I'll be recording them at home. The only reason I'd record them elsewhere would be if, while I was out working, and I was too far away from home or something. I found, oh crap, there's something I should react to. That's the only reason I'd do that. But otherwise, no. Typically, I would probably try my best to do these at home, if we get this place, and some original content that I hope will, boost my channel even further. These React videos help my channel get monetized, as well as some decade-old gaming footage that inexplicably still gets views nowadays, has helped as well. Unfortunately, when I upload gaming footage now, it just doesn't help my channel because people seem to be uploading gaming footage before a game is even released, and it's not fair. I used to be... In my early years on YouTube, I used to be one of the first people to upload footage of a game, and that was why they'd get a lot of views, even though my channel would remain really small. My channel's bigger now than it was back then. More than double the subscriber count. But But my videos are getting more views at the time. Anyways, that doesn't matter. What do you think about these consoles? Did any of these consoles surprise you? I'm sorry to say, and I do apologize, none of them surprised me. Because I've looked up the list before on Wikipedia. I haven't looked it up recently. But none of these consoles surprised me. I already knew the PS2 was first. I already knew the DS was second. I already knew the Game Boy was third. I was surprised the PS4 was fourth. The PS4 is fourth. Fourth. I was surprised by that. I thought the PS1 was fourth. But no, the PS4 was fourth. The PS5 was fifth. So I had to flip on that. I thought they were the other way around. The Wii was sixth. I knew that one. I guess I was a bit surprised that the 360 and the PS3 were ahead of the 3DS. Or was the 3DS ahead of them? I forget. I guess I was a bit surprised the PSP actually sold more than the Game Boy Advance, considering how popular the Game Boy Advance was at the time. But these consoles were not... The ones that made the list didn't surprise me. It didn't surprise me the Switch was on there. It didn't surprise me the Xbox One was on there. It was 14 consoles. 14th was the Super Nintendo. But there's a pretty big gap between that and what's above it. Any of them surprise you? I guess the Super Nintendo was kind of surprised to me to be in 14th. Because, yeah, it beat the Sega Genesis. And it's a great success. Oh, yeah, the NES was on there. Duh. That was also not a surprise. So I guess I named them off wrong. What first was the PS2, then the DS, then the Game Boy Advance, not the Game Boy, excuse me, then the PS4, then the PS1, then the Wii, then it was, I think the 3D, or no, it was the PS3, then the 360, then the 3DS, then the PSP, then the Game Boy Advance, then the NES, then the Xbox One, and then the Super Nintendo. And in case you're wondering about my signals, I learned American Sign Language in 2006 to get at Santa Rosa Junior College for the 2006 fall semester to get my foreign language credits to graduate high school. But I don't remember all my sign language, but I kind of remember my numbers: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, I think. Anyways, I'm not going to count them all. That'd take too long. But thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe. Check out my other Scott the Woz React videos. And stay tuned for some more React videos. Maybe some more live streams. Check out the footage of Sonic Colors Ultimate I uploaded. And if you would, check out this video I highlighted of a React video to a Carl Jobs video called "I'm Being Sued and Canceled." I think it's an important video, and he doesn't deserve to be treated the way he's being treated. I think it's unfair. Anyways, thank you so much for watching.